Good afternoon. This is Jim Knopf. I'm the UIUC project manager, and along with Robin Lewis, the DRS project manager. Welcome to I believe this is our 6th community of practice. We're just a couple reminders before we get started to please mute yourselves. We want you. We don't want you to stay muted. We want there to be plenty of interaction and plenty of dialogue. But when not speaking, if you would please mute yourselves. Secondly, for the benefit of the sign language interpreters, if you could identify yourself before you start speaking, and that will ease in the communication. And also, lastly, if you again would turn your video off to save some bandwidth, that will, and then when you're speaking, feel free to turn it back on. But to save bandwidth, if you would turn your video off. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Robin to kick this off, and we'll get rolling. Robin.
Great, thanks, Jim. Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry about the hang up, but glad that all of you who are on here are here. I noticed that some state folks probably are having that pesky issue, but that's okay. We'll record, we'll move on, and we'll still make this a great community of practice. All right, so next slide. Let's go into the agenda real quick. So today we're going to educate you on the Dignity and Pay Act. We'll allow some time for question and answers on the topic. We have some of the customer and agency highlights to share, and we want to have some open discussion. And hopefully you'll be able to take away something today that you can apply in your daily practice. So next slide. So in May, our project has been busy. I feel like every single day we have something new that's happening. And so this month we are working on the fiscal year 25 budgets. It's crunch time. We got to get them together so we can get them linked to your contracts to start by July 1st. So we're really putting the nose to the grind here to try to get those done. The CRSs and U of I team participated at the TAC QE conference up in Wisconsin, I believe it was. Dignity and Pay went through the House, and as far as on the legislative front, and the CRS team completed their first round of Social Security, SSI, SSDI benefits training. I'm sure they're very excited about that. Next slide. All right, so by the numbers, this looks fantastic, folks. Like, I was very excited to see these numbers. Remember, our goal for the pilot year was only 48 individuals engaged, and we have 55 folks engaged in the project. 34 of those are currently DRS customers, and 16. I think the last time we reported, there was only 9, maybe 12. So really remarkable. You guys are doing fantastic, and I'm super excited to see these numbers. Keep up the great work. Next slide. So I'm reading a book. It's called Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. This was brought up in a leadership summit that we had recently with the DRS. And there were a couple of quotes in there that I felt were very pertinent to this as we start paving the way for new ways of doing business. So on leadership behaviors that get in our way, Brené Brown says that not enough people are taking smart risks or creating and sharing bold ideas to meet the changing demands and the insatiable need for innovation. when people are afraid of trying something and failing, or even of putting forth a radical new idea, the best you can expect is status quo and groupthink. So my reason for picking that quote is that we are now in a much more important way. SWTC is going to have to take these smart risks and create and share bold ideas in order to make the transformation we need to make as a state in terms of employment for people with the most significant disabilities. If we don't do that, we are not going to change a darn thing. And so that's not acceptable. We need to get more folks working, and the pressure is on. So next slide. The reason why the pressure is on is because our work just got 1,000 times more important. Dignity and Pay, House Bill 0793, House Amendment 4, was passed in the House at the very end of the session, the very last week of May. So next slide. So what does that mean? It passed the House with 79 votes. We only needed 60 votes for it to pass. We thought we had right at 60, maybe 61, but we got 79. So that means in the last week or two of our work and our efforts, we got 18 more people to change their mind. So, I mean, it's really remarkable, honestly. Maybe I did my math wrong, but we got more people. But anyway, what happens now? So after it passes the House, then it's going to go to the Senate. Unfortunately, we did not have enough time for it to go to the Senate and be heard on the Senate floor. But we fully expect for this to be presented in the veto session this fall, which I believe starts in October-ish, maybe even late September. I don't have a calendar in front of me, and I'm still so new, I don't have those dates memorized. But anyway, we've fully believed that there are enough Senate folks in the Senate to get a yes vote. So we do anticipate the bill passing in the fall, which is very exciting. Very exciting. But what that does for us is make our work a whole heck of a lot more important and under a microscope, honestly. So we have to get this right for the state, for the improvement of systems statewide. They're looking to us. When they were creating the amendments to the bill, they really were asking some very in-depth questions about our project, and they are very interested in the work that we're doing. I fully anticipate that we are going to be leaned on for the implementation of this dignity and pay. So what does dignity and pay do? For those of you who are not familiar with the bill, essentially it eliminates on July 1st of 2029 the use of active or pending 14C certificates. So agencies in Illinois will no longer be able to hold a 14C certificate that allows them to pay subminimum wage to their employees after July 1st of 2029. So the bill prohibits paying subminimum wages to employees with a disability. Even though that is the case, it will not close day programs or sheltered work, but it does mandate at least minimum wage payment for work. So this bill really addresses fair pay as both a civil rights and economic issue. It prioritizes person-centered planning, and it also, we were able to sneak in there an increase in the personal needs allowances for our customers. So next slide. I'll go a little more in detail about the bill, the specifics as far as what it looks like with House Amendment 4. So it requires the Department of Human Services, which is DRS, DD, and any other entity within the IDHS umbrella that this that works with folks with developmental disabilities, or the most significant, I guess you could say. So the Illinois Council on Developmental Disabilities is a required partner, the Illinois Department of Labor. So we will all work together for that gradual 5-year process to increase employment options for people with disabilities and phase out that 14C minimum wage authorizations. It eliminates permission for employers to pay workers less than minimum wage starting on December 31st, 2029. Requires the governor to appoint at least 2 sub-minimum wage certificate holders to the EEOPD task force. So that is the Economic and Employment Opportunities for Persons with Disabilities Task Force. It wouldn't be a government task force without a big long name. So there it is. So this task force is charged. This is our Employment First task force for the state. They are charged with creating a plan, an implementation plan, by July 1st, 2025. So if this thing doesn't pass until, September, October, that's not a whole lot of time for us to get this plan put in place. So they're really going to be asking us for some support. So next slide, please. So what the Dignity and Pay Act also does is establish a transition grants program for 14C providers to support them through the transition. So this is exactly what we are doing right now with the 6 agencies SWTC is working with. Essentially, we are demonstrating how a transition grant program could work. We are doing it right now. They're going to be looking to us. How much money did you use? What did your transition look like? What needs to be included in a transition plan, et cetera, et cetera. It increases the personal needs allowance for individuals living in a SILA to $100 per month. Currently, it's only $60, and that will begin on January 1st of 2025. And it requires HFS and DHS to file a waiver amendment by January 1st, 2025, to federal CMS to increase the group supported employment rates for organizations that provide disability employment programs. So what that means is, for those of you who are providers of DD group supported employment, this requires for DD to file for an amendment to that waiver and increase the funds that are available under that waiver for those activities. So next slide. So the House Amendment 4 asks also for the task force to consider alternatives for the aging population. So for those individuals who've worked sheltered work for 30 years and have no intention to work in the community, no desire to work in the community, for those that are broaching retirement age, so they want to consider some alternatives for that group, that population. I don't know what that means, but I have a feeling that this group could offer some ideas, and folks will be looking to us for some ideas. The act must also uphold customer choice and provide some meaningful options for those who choose not to work. Next slide. So what does that mean? What does dignity and pay mean for SWTC, Illinois, for our project specifically? So our agencies, like I said, are going to be considered in transition. We're going to be tracked by the governor's office. Our work is going to be used as a model for other agencies. We knew that this was going to happen from the beginning of the grant project because that is a grant outcome. But this just made that more visible well before we thought, which is fine. Just means that we need to kind of probably up our game a little bit, which I'm sure everybody here is ready for. If not, you will be. The task force members, we have the EEOPD, the group as a whole. We have ICDD as a partner. They're going to be leading that dignity and pay work group. And the bill also states that an academic partner with subject matter expertise or experts to be a part of this task force. Well, I mean, U of I is an academic partner that certainly has some subject matter experts. So I do feel like we will be looked to for this. Are we the only academic group that could provide some support? Absolutely not. But we are the group that's doing the work right now. So I'm sure that we will be looked to. Example transition plans need to be made available by January 1st, 2025. I mean, that's coming up in a few months. We need to be ready to assist with that type of work. So we will be looking to all of you to help us with that. A multi-year task force plan has to be developed, and that there's a robust prescription for data collection. Next slide. So the multi-year task force plan has to evaluate a multitude of things, such as we need to approximate the number of persons with disabilities who are currently being paid sub-minimum wage who want to transition to CIE. We will only get that directly from agencies' input. Approximate number of people who do not wish to pursue CIE and who would benefit from meaningful day activities instead. In existing state employment programs, so DRS, DD, we will be required to, provide information in that capacity. We need to evaluate the capacity limits in provider contracts. That is already underway. We are mapping out what agencies across the state have DD vendors and how many of those vendors also have DRS contracts, and vice versa, like who has a DRS contract but no DD, aren't a DD vendor, and trying to analyze and do some planning in that regard, and also understanding where the deserts are, because there are certainly parts of the state that does not have any employment services like this for the most significant populations. So we have to use existing and emerging technologies, and we have to evaluate the impact of access to transportation. So that's what this task force plan has to include. Next slide. In addition, there's a very large component of data analysis, where we have to develop a way to track the activities of youth with disabilities. And within 1 year of their high school exit, we have to track those individuals. We have to track the schools that have pre-ETS and STEP programs, count the number of students with IEPs who need those community, home and community-based adult services, potential changes to state laws, regulation, and policy, disseminating information regarding employment supports and benefits, and education and training needs of providers. So next slide. I think there might be a little bit more to this data. Yes. We also need to talk about in the data and figure out a way in the data analysis to analyze those agreements between state agencies and community-based providers. ongoing review of rates and reimbursements, and how we're engaging private businesses, and the need for benefits planning and the availability of benefits planning, which we know is dismal at best for the state, and that's an area we need to improve. So tracking all of this information is going to be a very daunting task because our systems currently aren't tracking a lot of this information. So we're going to have to make some changes, and likely they'll be looking to the SWITC project to help develop some ideas for this. So next slide. All right, so that's the end of dignity and pay overview. What are your questions? I will do my very best to answer them, or just hear your opinions, whatever it may be. And again, I can't.
Hey, Robin, this is Patrick.
Hi, Patrick. Thank you for chiming in.
No, so you said that the workshops are going to have to go up to at least minimum wage. So what are they, and they're not going to close. So what are they going to do with the customers? In the workshop, because we've been down to workshops and a lot of those customers they're in there just to have a place to go during the day. How is that going to work for those participants?
So, every agency is going to have to come up with their own plan for whatever's going to work best for their customers. And so the encouragement, I see Nick has his hand raised with an idea, and I think Brandy was coming off of mute, but I don't know if that was an accident or not. So yeah, go ahead, Brandy.
Well, this is Brandy from Kreider. We've begun a transition period. We still hold our 41C and still do our production work, but we have just transitioned into community activities for a lot of the people who, because our work is coming in like very random now, like we don't get a lot. So we just offer activities that everybody likes and do community things with them.
And thank you, Brandy, for that. And I feel like that's kind of been things that I've heard from other agencies as well. So Nick, you have something to add?
Yes, thank you so much, Robin. This is Nick speaking with Access Living. I just kind of wanted to quickly respond. I've been also visiting a lot of these organizations and provider agencies across the state. One of the one that comes to mind, they got rid of their 14C program a few years ago. They still have facility-based work, and it's actually really thriving. They've built a really strong relationship with their employer in order to, or the contractor, in order to make sure that their folks still have opportunities. They've definitely seen a decline in the workers in their facility base only because they've moved into the community. That being said, overall satisfaction from the consumers and their families has been very high. I've also heard there's a lot of businesses and organizations that they want to continue, even with an increase in minimum wage, they want to continue a relationship with the providers, which is, I think, very optimistic as each agency looks to decide what is going to be the best course of action for them and serving their consumers. So I just wanted to add that there is already work that is existing in the state of Illinois of facility-based workshops while paying at least a minimum wage, if not prevailing wage.
Thank you, Nick, for that insight. Does anyone else have some ideas, especially the agency? All of you applied for this grant because you are thinking about, making a change anyway and transitioning from 14C. Do any of you have some insight as to some of the reasons, maybe not necessarily the reasons, but maybe the change in structure that you're thinking about?
This is Jim Robin. Speaking to that, one of the goals, and I know I'm preaching to the choir with you, but just to kind of reiterate this, that one of the purposes, one of the products of this project at the end is to help agencies transform their business model and to help them figure out ways to replace that income that was being generated through sub-minimum wage work. And that can be done for a variety of ways. One of them being increasing their capacity of DRS contracts and other sources of revenue. So that's and to answer Patrick's question, what's going to happen to these folks? Well, the hope is that through the balance of the SWITSI contract or SWITSI project and into the future, that we're moving individuals out of sub-minimum wage work and into competitive employment that we've shown we're able to do by those numbers Robin showed earlier in just a short period of time that the project's been really gaining some traction.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jim. So when I say our work is becoming very, like, 1,000 times more important, 1,000 times probably isn't even an accurate growth measure. I think that it's going to become way more important than what we think it will be. So on that note, I've been kind of preaching in any group that I can get into about participation. We can't get better, honestly, without hearing from every single team player. We need to hear from everybody on this call is here for a reason. And we value everybody's opinion and all of your ideas. We want to hear them. There's going to be no idea that's too outlandish for us to entertain. As a matter of fact, we want the most outlandish ideas so that we can come with the best approach, because really, if we're not all actively involved in this, we are not going to make any change to the state system, and one that does not, in my opinion, operate very well as far as supporting folks with the most significant needs in competitive employment. So we know we have about 3,600 folks working at sub-minimum wage. We can't filter those folks into a broken system and expect positive outcomes. So we have to do the work, and we need to hear from you. We're here to facilitate the change, but y'all are the ones that have to help us down the road to identify the problems and to identify solutions. You're in it every single day, so you know what works, what doesn't work. So we have to hear from you if we expect to make any headway moving forward. So please, I really, really want to hear from each and every one of you who's on the call. I want to hear your ideas. And that's what this community of practice is all about. Before we transition to the next topic, is there anybody have any comments about dignity and pay, or the level of work that might be expected from everyone, or any fears, concerns, maybe some positive things that you think about it? Dawn, yes.
I have some concerns just thinking about the whole Social Security thing. And this is Dawn Gepple with Commissioner Rehab. And my concerns are just about, those individuals that have been so reliant on Social Security to supplement their wages. They're making sub-minimum, and just the impact. And, And like you had mentioned, you know, some of our assistance with benefits planning is abysmal at the least, you know, or it's not very timely. And it's working with youth. It's oftentimes hard to convince the families as well about the ability to work and while they're on Social Security benefits. So those are just some things I'm concerned about how that's all going to work. And yes, some individuals are spending time in sheltered workshop settings to have some place to go during the day. And you know, just locally, what will that mean?
No, and Dawn, your concern is one that we've heard over and over and over again, and we realize that it is a huge issue. Benefits planning has to become a more center. You know, we need to focus in more on that aspect, because honestly, if we don't do some myth busting and really do some educating to families, to even customers about, you know, how they can work and still maintain their benefits. I mean, we're not going to get any customers transitioning to competitive integrated employment because they're too afraid of that, of the unknown. So we do need to do some educating. So as a project, we are putting our community research specialists through that training so that they can test out the idea of having somebody available for each agency to provide that preliminary education, that preliminary workup. As we know in the state, our WIPA providers, it's wonderful that we have them, but they'll only work with people if you already have a job. So that's really not helpful in these situations. We also had a great idea come through, I believe it was yesterday or recently within the last week, about making benefits planning a pre-ETS topic. Like, why aren't we talking about benefits in school as the pre-employment? That was a phenomenal idea. So I think our project really has space to help correct this problem and come up with some interesting and real solutions to educating folks about how working impacts their benefits. There is a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of myths out there about that. Go ahead, Jen.
If I can, yeah, if I can expand on that just a little bit. We've had our CRSs here, Aletha, Sharon, and Kyle have just recently completed a fairly rigorous training program on benefits planning through an agency that contracts with the state of Texas to do benefits planning. So for our SWTC customers right now, they have that resource of the community research specialist to be able to chat with about some of their concerns and giving them information about how work can impact Social Security benefits, and not just Social Security benefits, but housing, SNAP benefits, Medicaid, and all of those other benefits that they have long relied upon. So this is really an innovative piece of this project that is identified it and really plugged a gap. So we're really looking forward to that. They just completed it last week, so they're ready and willing and able and have the technical support of the group in Texas to be able to work through this with them. So that's been identified, and I think we know that regardless of how it might impact Social Security benefits, the folks are almost always folks are almost always better off and have more money in their pocket working than not working. So that's a good question, Dawn.
Brandy, I think you might have had something else to add, perhaps.
I do. Even before benefits planning, I don't know if anyone else is in this situation, but we have a large residential program also. And most of our people don't even know where their money goes. It goes from a finance person, and then the home supervisor helps them budget their money, but I don't know how much they're included in the whole process. So when we start talking about benefits planning, they look at us like, what the heck are you talking about? So for us, it's been starting with trying to get them more involved in their regular budgeting of everything, because it hasn't happened up until now. They just know that somebody puts money in their pouch every month and I get to spend this much money.
I mean, that's a great point, Brandy. I think that Jim, this might be a way for us to get the SILs and our Pathways project, connected with our project, because they are developing some curriculum, and some of that curriculum is going to be revolving around finances. So I wonder if this would be a way for us to include that information and tie the projects together.
Without a doubt. This
yeah.
is Jim, without a doubt. Yep.
Anyone else? Okay. Well, the next slide is going to be for me to share. We did some pre-questions the last time about, we did a little survey. We had a few folks answer the questions, and we didn't get through all of the questions. So there's a few topics left to cover. So we're hoping that we could do that today in the same way that we did last community of practice, where I typed in your ideas while we were talking about them. So give me a moment. Oops, Jim, I need the powers to share.
Should be good.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, that's me. This is Brandy from Kreider. The person we are highlighting is Jake. He is 37-year-old man. He was supported by the workshop in Galena from 2006 to 2013. He then moved to Kreider in 2013, and he's been with us ever since. His family, he has 3 siblings. His mother is deceased since he was a child, and his father tries to be supportive of him. We have great communication with him. They do have a love-hate relationship because dad's not afraid to tell him when he's messing up, and Jake doesn't like that. So, sorry. Next slide. Jake's DRS counselor is Louise. U of I community research specialist is Sharon. Agency employment specialist is Pablo, but we are switching that to Tina Adcock because Jake's decided he does not want a male employment specialist. Wraparound or other special services, we opened his DRS case in December of 2023. Jake lives in one of our Kreider Services group homes. Family dynamics, again, 3 siblings, mother is deceased, father tries to be supportive. Yeah, next slide, please. He is, oh, Jake's DRS process. He is part of the supported employment contract. His data referral was 9/20 of 23. IPE date is 11/27/23. When information was sent with the referral, we sent a self-referral form along with a packet with releases of information for medical, behavioral, and for DRS to communicate with Kreider. These are all signed by his guardian as well. What additional information? DRS asked for a behavioral health history release. That was just to show Jake's psych history. And next slide, please. Jake's strengths are he's hardworking, he loves to help, he's able to do more complicated tasks and more of the difficult piece rate jobs that we have. He likes to do things his own way. He learns how to do the job and then wants to come up with his own way to reach the same end result. Jake rides his bike everywhere in the community. He is independent in the community for up to 4 hours and just has to check in after 2. Jake is very friendly and very helpful. Next slide. Challenges with Jake is he does not see himself as someone with a disability and doesn't want anyone else to see him in that aspect either. He likes it when he is the first and only one to do something. Seems like every time someone else reaches his milestone, he is over it. He has problems with taking direction from females in the past. So he then had a male job coach, but now he says he prefers a female job coach. Jake has expressed interest in working on a farm with animals, at a junkyard, at a recycling center. He wants to be able to use his muscles and get dirty. This is cool to him. Efforts to set up a situational assessment have been challenging and unsuccessful thus far. He says he likes to get dirty, but when it comes time to get dirty, he doesn't want to get dirty. So that's another challenge. Jake has had 4 jobs in the community, the Lighthouse in Galena, doing some custodial tasks at a heating and cooling company, working in a mechanic shop, and most recently, Kitzman Lumber doing custodial tasks. Next slide. Most recently, we got Jake a job at Kitzman's Lumber. We have a staff here that works in our program that her family owns a business and suggested that we try to reach out to her dad to see if he was hiring. So the tasks were things that Jake had said that he wanted to do, unloading and loading supplies into people's vehicles, dusting and organizing the store, just being a side helper. After working there 1 week, which was 3 shifts, Jake decided he didn't want to work at Kitzman's anymore. He told many people different reasons why he didn't want to work at Kitzman's. He has identified Casey's as where he would want to work now, sweeping, mopping, and stocking the drink cooler. So Jake has a housemate that works at Casey's in the neighboring town, and this housemate regularly brings home snacks that he buys and brags that he gets free pop while he's there. Next slide. So I don't know if this is in here or not, but one of the challenges with Jake working at Casey's is that he has behavioral supports in place, that he steals food from housemates and just things that other people purchase, he takes. So he's got behavioral supports in place for that. Employment barriers are changes his mind frequently about what type of job he wants to do. So our plan is to expose him to as many different jobs as we can find, to find out what opportunities for employment that he has. We've decided to go outside of what he has been saying he wants to do and just giving a wide variety of situational assessments. He's excited to start a job, but loses interest very quickly. We need to gather more information about his idea of work and situational assessments, working interviews, job analysis prior to hiring him. It seems to be he gets a paycheck or two and then just doesn't want to work anymore. So maybe why do you want to work? Or finding out that reasoning why. He doesn't like to be told how to do a job. He wants to come up with his own way to achieve the end result. So setting the boundaries and expectations if possible, finding tasks that have flexibility for him to be creative. This has been a challenge for me myself because finding a job that has a boss that is okay with doing the job however you want has been difficult for me to find. He has issues with stealing in the past. A retail setting might potentially pose temptations or be problematic. So addressing this behavior and consequences of the behavior to him, he very much knows his behavior and he knows the consequences of his behavior. He has told me that he is a changed man and that it's not going to be a problem. But I have a very hard time believing that. So we are going to set him up with a situational assessment in that area that he's interested in and see how it goes. Next slide. Next steps, gathering more information from Jake about his idea of work, what it means to have a job, why people work in the first place. Does he like the idea of having a job, or does he just like the idea of having money? Being very intentional with information gathering, do a little or a lot of digging. What's Jake's perception of what a job entails? What does work look like for him? Professional behavior and what motivates him. He does a very, very good job working while he's at our center, but always has the option to quit whenever he wants while he's, in the sheltered workshop. So I think that might be some of where he's okay with, he thinks it's okay to just do this at a community job also. Prior to him starting a job, arranging for a work trial shift. And we did not do that with Kitzman's. We just took him through for a tour and to meet the employer before his interview. Provide information about the responsibilities of the job and expectations of the position, completing a job analysis and working interview. Create structured goal that includes a plan of action and a time frame for accomplishment. So having concrete expectations. If he doesn't want an employment specialist on site, the sooner he can demonstrate his ability to complete the job correctly and independently, the sooner fading process can happen. The second day Jake worked at Kitzman's, he told Pablo he didn't want him there with him anymore. So we didn't know if that was part of the problem, is because he didn't want to be seen as someone who needed help. So maybe that's why he quit, because he didn't want an employment specialist there with him. The problem with that is he was doing the job wrong and the employer wasn't going to have it. So he needed someone there to correct and, show him how to do the job correctly. Next slide. Message from Jake. When asked, Jake said he likes where he lives and likes coming to the Boston Center. He would prefer a female job coach. He wants a job in the community. Something to consider. Does he prefer tasks that are not solitary and would rather work with or around other people? That is a question. The answer, or the reason he wants a job, is to earn money and make friends, is what he told me. Next slide. Questions, thoughts, ideas, or feedback from you all that you have for us about Jake.
So this is Robin, and so I think that you pointed out like two really common things, especially that I have seen throughout my years in teaching. And so I'm just curious to hear what other folks have done strategy-wise to to provide support while remaining incognito, so that the individual who is pretty, sensitive to the fact that, they may stick out like a sore thumb, and people may hone in that there's a disability there when they don't want that disability to be acknowledged in any way. So I would like to hear from folks what they do to kind of address a complicated situation like that. I'm sure y'all have faced it at one time or another.
So before, I've job coached Jake before when he worked at the mechanic shop, and he never had a problem with me being there. So I don't understand why it's different now. And I was with him for 9 or 10 months, and he never had a problem with me being there. And when I asked him after he stopped working at Kitzman's, and I asked him, I was with you when you were, he said, because you're female.
Mm.
And that just kind of confused me, because he's always liked male company more so than female, so it just confused me a bit.
Well, but to me it kind of makes sense, because you said in his family history that he and his dad kind of have a love-hate relationship. So maybe in terms of an authoritative position, that male job coach, maybe he kind of thinks of it or relates it to his contentious relationship with his dad, the one that can be contentious, maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And this is Jim, and maybe I missed this. You mentioned the father's in the picture. Is his mother in the picture at all?
His mother passed away when he was a child.
Well, which also might indicate a reason for that innate need to have someone who might be a little more fill that motherly role. So interesting. So has there been any consideration to strategies where you can provide support but from afar?
Well, what we decided was, and I've talked to Jake about this, is we're just going to set the clear expectation. The faster you learn the job and the faster you do things correctly, the faster we will leave. So if he does and shows us that he can do the job to the employer's expectations, then we will leave him alone.
So I understand the stubbornness there about him wanting to do it his own way. Do you feel like that might be a cover-up for not understanding processes? Have you tried any type of visual schedule or things along that line?
Yeah, he absolutely wants to be different. And I've seen that even here at the workshop. If he stacks pallets, he can't stack pallets the way everyone else does it. He has to have his own way of doing it. So he'll stack 3 high all the way across instead of doing 1 layer at a time. Just that's an example. But when he was at Kitzman's and he was supposed to dust a section and put the items back where the tags were that matched, but he didn't want to do that. He wanted to clear the whole shelf, dust, and then put things back. But the problem with that was that he was putting things back in the wrong order, and the employer was visibly annoyed with that. So, and it wasn't a simple, like, you can't match, like, it wasn't, it didn't say exactly what was on the tag that was exactly on the product. So it took thinking when it got mixed up. It took actually, thinking to put it back the way it was supposed to be.
Gotcha. So anybody else have any strategies that go along with that idea or topic or situation?
This is David. I have a couple questions. You mentioned that there is a behavior plan in place at the residential. Do you have access to that? And do you have ideas about that behavior plan? Probably has ideas on reinforcers, maybe to address some of those maladaptive behaviors of, I mean, doing your own thing. I appreciate that, but most employers don't like that. So maybe trying to have like a replacement behavior in place in terms of you can do your unique system for this type of behavior, but maybe not at work or something like that. I don't know. Have you thought about that at all?
Right, yeah, and the behavior, he doesn't have that specifically in his behavior plan. His behavior plan is more for his stealing and inappropriate, like touching people. And by inappropriate, it's just hugging people without asking, and things like that. But there's nothing related to the way he does
Yeah,
tasks, you know.
I guess I'm saying, is there like a preferred reinforcer or anything that's identified in the behavior plan that you know about?
It's
Maybe.
his reinforcer basically is money and attention.
Mm,
So that, and I mean, the money is, his biggest reinforcer is money, but it doesn't, if it's not immediate, I think it's not big enough to stop the behavior from happening.
yeah. Yeah, that's tough. I know something in terms of, Robin, you were asking about like ways to job coach without being as obvious. And in retail settings, I used to always pretend like I was shopping or figure out ways to observe from a distance so it wasn't obvious that I was supporting that person. And then if he's only working part-time, maybe like taking that feedback that you've observed and doing an intervention at the agency rather than trying to like correct the behavior while he's working, because that could be drawing attention to it. Just some stuff that I used to do, throwing it out there.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, this is Sharon, and I think one of the reasons we kind of chose Jake for this presentation is because he is kind of, and we know this, he's a kind of a hard nut to crack. And we have Whitney and Alyssa from VCU that are also, working through this with us. But we thought, well, let's see what everybody else thinks as well. But he's definitely his own man. He knows what he wants and things like that. And he's a challenge, but that's okay because we're up to it, and they're doing a great job at Kreider. But we kind of thought, well, this will be interesting to see if other people, come up with some good suggestions as have been done here. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, this is Jim. Brandy, you guys are really doing good work. I've witnessed a lot of it firsthand, and this is one of those cases where, if it was easy, anybody could do it, because if it was easy, you'd already be working. So hang in there, keep at it.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a final slide on this slide deck? Thank you, Brandy, for sharing Jake's story. And we, as you guys move through the process, would love to hear some strategies and interventions that are working to address some of those maladaptive behaviors, like the stealing, especially if you're putting him into a situation where there is a lot of opportunity. Casey's has a lot of opportunity for him to steal food.
Yes.
So I'll be interested to see how you all handle that. So yeah, and because I understand why you picked Casey's, because that's what he says, that he says he wants to work. But if he's highly motivated, but probably picked that because he's highly motivated by food. So I can see where this will definitely be a challenge and perhaps about a barrier to continued employment.
Yes.
Mhm. All right. So we just have a couple minutes left. I would like to give opportunity if anybody has done anything to really disrupt the system, or if you've had an accomplishment or something, as the director likes to call it, a sparkle. If you have some sort of sparkle you'd love to share with us, we want to hear it. We want to hear it. Or if you learned something today that you'll take back with you, please share with us. No crickets, please. For
And this is from, yeah, this is Jim, and this is from either the agencies or from our counseling staff, our DRS folks. Is there anything that you're taking from these that you're implementing in your day-to-day work?
Richard, thank you.
Sure. Our guy Richard.
Hi, this is Richard. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I do have a thought about being disruptive to the system. This is a very busy time for STEP counselors, and CTF has been really good with adjusting to my tight schedule right now. They've been willing to adjust staffings, adjust meetings that are necessary to have. So I don't think I've disrupted their system a lot, but I do want to mention that I'm just about done with the transitions right now, the senior transition meetings. So I will be available more within the next couple of weeks. So that's my point on what I've done to disrupt the system. Again, sorry, CTF, but this is a busy time for us. And I just want to say that thank you all for being appreciative of my time as I get through this busy period. Thank you.
No, I think that's great, Richard. And I think that it's important just to acknowledge when teamwork is working, and being flexible and understanding that everybody's being pulled in different directions. And especially with DRS counselors, there are some specific seasons per se. So, you know, when the school year ends for those STEP counselors, it's very, very busy. And when graduation in general for any college cases, or the start of a new school year, enrolling new customers and getting folks set up for their school process is a lot of work, and it does take a lot of time. So yeah, we appreciate everybody being flexible and really recognizing the workload of the counselors and knowing when might be, if you are thinking ahead about referrals, you talk to your counselor about times that are, you know, a little slower for them, and maybe if it works out that way to kind of schedule your referrals, or see if they're, you know, I know you can't plan everything, but some things you might.
Hey, Richard, this is Jim. If I can put you on the spot just a little bit. So when you're writing your plans and you're doing all your end of the school year business with your transition and STEP kids, have you or is there anybody in your stable of customers that you think, boy, this is a kid that might be SWTC appropriate, that might be appropriate for support employment, that you know, that maybe on their IEP, the logical outcome is going to be sheltered work or support employment. I mean, is there anybody that you can think about that maybe could be could benefit from the services of CTF?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jim. Thanks. So the answer is yes. I have collaborated with another counselor, DRS counselor who works in my office. We identified that person maybe about a month and a half ago, that this person may be a good fit for the SWITC project. It was a topic of conversation when it first came out that, you know, we were looking for transition age youth, but in particular because she and I work in the same office. She identified the person. I read some medical information on them just briefly, and then spoke with the counselor about the customer. I thought, yeah, it sounds like this person would be a good match. And that's as far as it has went with this current customer. I think once the step indicator is removed, and that's some DRS terms, then I will be referring that person over to SWITC. So I'm utilizing everybody, but that was one in particular. I would want to meet with some of the current graduates from the transition school. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now. Southside Occupational School, to see if the parents will be interested. Again, this is a busy time for step counselors, so I just hadn't had a time to get around to identifying some of the CPS kids. But the student that I was referring to is a suburban kid that we had agreed we would go ahead and refer over for SWITC. But as far as CPS kids, I will need just a little bit more time. I'm pretty sure that they have some identified. I just need to reach out to them, and as soon as I get the time, I will be doing that.
That's a good deal. Good deal. We because, you know, that's one of the areas that we recognize that, and this is not any of the counselor or ES's fault. This is the fault of me, that we really need to focus and get a better focus on transition youth and those kids that I keep referring to, the ones that are in the back of the classroom that are not being served through STEP or are not being served through VR at all, that that historically have ended up in sheltered work. That those are the kids that we want to engage, and we want to get engaged with VR and engaged with support employment and get them working. So yeah, good to hear. Good to hear.
Hi, this is Teresa. I got a quick question for Richard. Richard, I just want to make sure I understand the individuals that are in STEP program and what you're finishing out for the school year. Are those individuals have IEPs already, and can they not work with us at CTF because they're still in the STEP program?
Yes, that is correct, because they have an indicator, and again, these are DRS terms. If a student still has a step indicator on their actual case, that is what determines them to be like a young adult. Once that is removed, then they can go into the traditional DRS services, such as your milestone, customized, and supported employment programs. So the answer to that question is yes. And yeah, once the step indicator is removed, we're thinking July 1st, that's when I'll be referring that person to CTF for SWITC customized employment service.
Okay, and then is the STEP program only in CPS schools, or is it also in the South suburban schools as well?
Right, so it does cover all schools. It may be worded differently. Sorry, we have it's called pre-employment training services, PTS. And again, I hate throwing out all this stuff out there to confuse people, but yes, it is within suburban schools as well.
Okay, and thank you. I'm with you on the acronyms though. Thank you.
You're welcome. Jones, DRS, how can I help you? Hey, how you doing?
So this is Robin, and I just want, on that note, that is a topic, how to engage students in the last year of their high school experience is going to be a topic of education for us in the future, because it is one where we are able to engage and have customers work with agencies in the community providers in their last year of school. But it is a little bit delicate how you do that, because you can always you can only bill the outcome can only be for one or the other and not both. So it's tricky. It is tricky and requires some education. But that is something that we will be talking about a little more in depth as we move through this community of practice. So thank you everyone for joining. Please, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to email us. We appreciate your time today. Thank you.